In the constellation Draco, a celestial serpent coiled around the northern pole of the sky, there burns a star of unusual ferocity. It is not a placid yellow dwarf like the Sun, but a churning, magnetically turbulent F-type main-sequence star designated Theta Draconis, a stellar furnace radiating with a brilliance that is both whiter and hotter than the light that nourishes Earth. Its energy output is not a steady, dependable stream, but a volatile tide, prone to sudden and violent surges that lash its inner planetary system with storms of high-energy particles. It is within this tempestuous domain, orbiting at a precarious distance of only 15 million kilometers, that the planet known as Theta 9 completes its frantic, searingly rapid year. A year on this world lasts for a mere 3 terrestrial days, a dizzying testament to its proximity to its parent star, a proximity that has sealed its fate and forged it into an object of profound scientific fascination and a source of deep, intellectual dread. For Theta 9 is not merely a hot world, it is a world caught in a cycle of self-immolation so precise, so rapid, and so utterly complete that it challenges the very definition of a planetary environment. It is a world that, with the regularity of a cosmic clock, burns itself clean every hour. From the dispassionate distance of orbital observatories and spectral analysis, Theta 9 presents itself as a sphere of two starkly opposed realities. It is tidally locked, a celestial captive eternally presenting one face to its star while the other remains turned away in perpetual darkness. The substellar point on the day side, the epicenter of the star's unyielding gaze, endures temperatures that models estimate to be in excess of 2,200 degrees Celsius, a heat sufficient not merely to melt rock, but to boil it. The surface here is not solid, it is a shimmering, incandescent ocean of molten silicates, a magma sea glowing with a cherry red to white-hot intensity. Above this liquid surface, what passes for an atmosphere is a thick, crushing shroud of vaporized rock, a miasma of gaseous silicon, oxygen, iron, and magnesium, superheated into a state of plasma. This is the planet's furnace, the engine of its hourly cataclysm. In stark contrast, the night side is an abyss of cold. Shielded from the star's radiation, its heat has long since bled away into the vacuum of space, leaving behind a landscape locked in a cryogenic stasis, where temperatures plummet to below -200 degrees Celsius. Here, any remnant atmospheric gases that drift from the dayside instantly freeze, precipitating out as a fine, crystalline frost upon a surface of eternally solid rock and exotic ices. Between these two impossible extremes lies the planet's most critical feature, the terminator, a twilight ring that girdles the globe, a zone of perpetual dawn and dusk where the searing heat of the dayside collides with the absolute cold of the nightside. This is not a gentle gradient, but a thermal cliff, a boundary of unimaginable tension where the hourly cycle of planetary destruction is born. The fear it inspires in those who study it is not one of personal danger, but the awe-filled horror of witnessing a law of physics executed on a planetary scale with the relentless, unthinking perfection of a guillotine. The process begins in silence, in the overwhelming, unshielded glare of the star on the planet's dayside. For approximately 30 minutes of each hour-long cycle, the planet is in a state of charging, accumulating a vast and unstable reservoir of potential energy. The radiation from Theta Draconis, a constant, ferocious bombardment of photons and charged particles, pours onto the molten dayside hemisphere. This energy does more than simply maintain the liquid state of the surface, it actively sublimes it, boiling the silicate magma directly into a gaseous state. Ton after ton, cubic kilometer after cubic kilometer of rock is vaporized, rising into the atmosphere to join the already dense shroud of superheated gas. The atmospheric pressure at the substellar point climbs to levels that dwarf anything known in the solar system, reaching hundreds, perhaps thousands, of Earth atmospheres. This is not air as it is understood on a terrestrial world, it is a dense, semi-opaque medium, a supercritical fluid of rock vapor glowing with its own internal heat, so thick that it begins to behave less like a gas and more like a liquid. Within this incandescent fog, convective currents churn with incredible violence, dredging up yet more material from the magma ocean below, feeding the atmospheric engine in a runaway positive feedback loop. The planet's dayside becomes a planetary-scale pressure cooker, sealed by its own gravity, with the stellar radiation acting as the flame. The energy being absorbed during this half-hour phase is colossal, equivalent to the detonation of millions of thermonuclear weapons every second, all of it stored as thermal and potential energy in the rapidly thickening, ever hotter atmosphere. An observer, were one able to exist, would see the sky brighten not from the star alone, but from the sheer incandescence of the air itself, a world enclosed within a self-generated star of its own making. This immense accumulation of pressure cannot be sustained. The superheated, high-pressure vapor of the dayside naturally seeks to expand, to equalize with the near vacuum and cryogenic temperatures of the nightside. The only barrier is the sheer inertia of the atmospheric mass and the dramatic temperature gradient at the terminator. Here, at the twilight zone, the hot, dense rock vapor meets the frigid, thin wisps of frozen gases from the dark hemisphere. This boundary acts as a weather front of cosmic proportions, a vertical wall of temperature and pressure differential stretching from the surface to the edge of space. For most of the charging cycle, this front holds a state of tense but temporary equilibrium. The hot gas cools slightly as it approaches the terminator, becoming denser and less energetic, while the cold air from the nightside is too thin and has too little momentum to push back. But the pressure on the dayside continues to build relentlessly. The trigger for the storm is not a singular event, but a cascade failure, a critical threshold being breached along the entire 40,000-kilometer circumference of the terminator line simultaneously. Models suggest that subtle instabilities, perhaps minor fluctuations in the stellar wind from Theta Draconis or the faint remnants of a Coriolis effect from the planet's ancient, now arrested rotation, create a slight shear in the atmospheric flow. A small breach occurs, a leak in the planetary dam. Through this initial opening, the high-pressure gas begins to accelerate, moving at supersonic speeds. This initial outflow creates a low-pressure zone behind it, which in turn pulls more gas from the dayside, widening the breach in a chain reaction that propagates around the globe in mere seconds. The dam does not break in one location, it disintegrates everywhere at once. The entire atmospheric inventory of the dayside, a mass of vaporized rock trillions of tons in weight, is unleashed in a single, coordinated, planet-encircling surge. The moment of release is the birth of the storm, an event of such violence it is best described not as weather, but as a form of planetary ballistics. A wall of incandescent plasma and superheated silicate vapor, glowing with the brilliance of a magnesium fire, erupts from the dayside and blasts across the terminator into the darkness. This is the cleansing wave. Its leading edge moves at speeds estimated to be in excess of 5 km per second, Mach 10 in the thin, cold air of the nightside. It is not a wind of air, but a shock wave of gaseous rock. As this front sweeps over the twilight and dark hemispheres, it enacts a process of absolute sterilization and geological reset. The kinetic energy of the blast alone is enough to pulverize the frozen surface, but the thermal energy is its true weapon. The plasma wave, still thousands of degrees Celsius, flash melts the cryo-frozen crust of the nightside. Any terrain, any feature, any structure that might have existed is instantly liquefied, then vaporized, scoured away by the abrasive, supersonic flow. The sound, were there a medium to carry it in a conventional sense, would be a continuous, globe-spanning thunderclap of unimaginable magnitude, the roar of a world tearing itself apart. The light from this storm front would be blinding, a ring of pure, white-hot energy propagating from the terminator and converging on the antistellar point on the far side of the planet. For the 20 to 30 minutes the storm rages, the entire planet of Theta 9 glows, its dark side illuminated not by reflected starlight, but by the fire of its own atmosphere. This is the hourly act of purification, a process that ensures no complexity, no geology, no history can ever be written upon the planet's surface. It is a world perpetually returned to a state of molten, glassy infancy, every single hour. As the incandescent wave of vaporized rock propagates across the frozen nightside, it undergoes a dramatic and violent phase transition. The immense heat of the storm front rapidly radiates away into the cold of space and is absorbed by the cryogenic surface below. The temperature of the silicate gas plummets by thousands of degrees in a matter of minutes. This rapid cooling forces the gaseous silicon, oxygen, and metal compounds to condense directly back into a liquid, and then a solid state. What follows is a form of precipitation unlike any other. It is not rain of water, but a deluge of molten glass. Droplets of liquid silica, still glowing with residual heat, form in the upper altitudes of the turbulent storm cloud and begin to fall toward the surface. As they descend through the increasingly cold and thin atmosphere of the night side, they cool further, solidifying in midair. They do not form gentle snowflakes or rounded hailstones. The rapid, uncontrolled cooling creates amorphous structures, sharp, needle-like filaments of obsidian, razor-edged shards of glass, and fine, abrasive dust of pure silica. A blizzard of glass and mineral dust, driven by the still supersonic winds, sweeps across the entirety of the dark hemisphere. The ground, itself recently flash-melted by the storm's passage, is buried under a fresh blanket of this alien precipitation. The landscape of the nightside is thus perpetually remade, coated in a new layer of jagged, crystalline, and glassy debris with every cycle. When the storm finally subsides, the nightside of Theta 9 is a breathtakingly hostile vista, a desert of black glass and silicate snow, reflecting the faint light of distant stars from a trillion freshly formed, razor-sharp facets, all resting upon a bed of nitrogen ice, waiting for the next inevitable, hourly scouring. The cycle of deposition is as violent and absolute as the cycle of erosion. With the atmospheric mass from the dayside having been catastrophically expelled onto the nightside, a profound and immediate change occurs. The pressure on the dayside plummets, dropping from thousands of atmospheres back to a near vacuum in less than half an hour. The thick, insulating blanket of rock vapor is gone, stripped away by the storm. The molten surface of the dayside is once again exposed directly to the raw, unfiltered radiation of Theta Draconis. The cycle of charging begins anew. The star's energy, no longer needing to penetrate a dense atmosphere, pours directly onto the liquid rock, and the process of vaporization restarts. The pressure begins its slow, inexorable climb. Meanwhile, on the nightside, the storm has spent its fury. The winds die down as the pressure across the globe reaches a temporary, unstable equilibrium. The freshly deposited layer of glass dust and shards settles, covering the entire hemisphere in a uniform, dark, and sparkling blanket. The heat from the storm has been radiated away, and the surface temperature once again begins its plunge back toward cryogenic levels. The planet enters a brief, quiescent phase, a deceptive calm that lasts only minutes. For this short period, Theta 9 is a world of relative peace, one side quietly boiling, the other quietly freezing. But the engine has been reset. The fundamental imbalance, the tidally locked orientation and the ferocious stellar furnace, remains. The pressure on the dayside builds, the thermal gradient across the terminator steepens, and the entire system prepares itself for the next inevitable release. The entire process, from the first breach at the terminator to the final settling of the glass dust on the nightside and the beginning of the next pressure buildup, is a perfect, self-regulating clockwork mechanism, a heat engine of planetary scale that has been running without interruption for billions of years, each tick and tock marked by an act of global annihilation and rebirth. Over geological timescales, this relentless hourly cycle has profound and unique consequences for the planet's very structure. On Earth, geology is a story of complexity, of tectonic plates colliding to raise mountains, of volcanoes building new land, of rivers carving canyons, and of life itself altering the landscape. On Theta 9, there is no such story. The concept of a stable surface geology is meaningless. The hourly storm is a process of ultimate erosion and sorting, a planetary-scale refining process that has been operating for eons. The continuous melting, vaporization, and redeposition of the surface material has, over billions of cycles, purified the outer crust. Lighter elements have been preferentially vaporized and distributed, while heavier elements have likely sunk into the molten dayside ocean, perhaps concentrating deeper within the mantle. The surface of the dayside is not rock, but a highly refined, uniform glass. The nightside is not covered in soil or regolith, but in the purest silica dust and shards, sorted by the storm winds. Any mountain range that might have once existed would have been eroded to nothingness in a geological instant. Any impact crater from an asteroid would be erased within an hour of its formation. The planet is perpetually smooth, its topography reset with every beat of its atmospheric heart. This raises a tantalizing question for planetary geologists: could anything survive this process? It is hypothesized that deep beneath the storm-scoured surface, there may exist structures of incredible durability. Perhaps crystalline formations of carbon, diamonds of immense size, or compounds of tungsten and other refractory metals, forged in the planet's core and brought up by ancient convection, could resist the hourly melting. Such features would still be subject to erosion, but at a much slower rate. They would be worn down not by meters per hour, but perhaps by microns per cycle, their surfaces polished and abraded by the supersonic glass winds. They would stand as the only permanent features on a world of violent transients, silent witnesses to billions of storms, their existence a measure of deep time in a place where an hour constitutes an entire geological age. The observation of Theta 9 is an exercise in remote, inferential science, a piecing together of a terrifying narrative from faint photons traveling across interstellar space. Astronomers cannot see the storms directly, but they witness their effects with stunning clarity. High-precision photometry, the measurement of the planet's brightness over time, reveals a distinct and repeating pattern. As the rock vapor atmosphere on the day side builds, the planet dims slightly, its thick, ruddy haze absorbing starlight. Then, as the storm erupts and wraps the globe in an incandescent front, the planet's total brightness spikes dramatically, pulsing like a faulty lamp. Spectroscopic analysis confirms this cycle. During the charging phase, the spectral lines of gaseous silicon, iron, and magnesium become overwhelmingly dominant. Then, during the storm and its aftermath, these signatures fade, replaced by the reflected light spectrum of a solid, glassy surface before beginning to build once again. Radio telescopes provide perhaps the most dramatic evidence. The storm front, a massive, fast-moving wave of plasma, is an enormous electrical generator. The friction and turbulence within the silicate vapor create a planet-encircling lightning storm of unimaginable power. This produces a powerful, repeating burst of radio waves, a cosmic heartbeat that signals the passage of each cleansing wave. This is the source of the astronomers' fear. It is not a primal fear of being harmed, but an intellectual fear born of comprehension. They are observing a system that is perfectly balanced in its violence. It is an engine of such efficiency and power that it operates on a timescale utterly alien to human experience. A geological process that would take 100 million years on Earth, the erosion of a mountain range, occurs on Theta 9 in 30 minutes. The fear is the recognition that the universe can produce not just cradles for life, but also perfectly functional, perfectly stable torture chambers of physics, worlds that are not broken or chaotic, but are instead in a state of exquisitely ordered, perpetual violence. It is the fear of a beautiful, flawless, and utterly lethal machine. In its totality, Theta 9 represents a profound statement about the nature of planetary systems and the laws that govern them. It is not a world that possesses weather, it is a world that is an expression of a single, monolithic meteorological event, a system where the atmosphere, the surface, and the geology are not separate domains but are instead fused into one dynamic, cyclical process. The planet itself is a heat engine, converting the raw thermal energy of its star into kinetic energy with ruthless efficiency, using its own vaporized crust as the working fluid. The constant flux prevents the formation of any lasting complexity. No intricate chemistry can survive the hourly plasma bath, no molecule more complex than simple oxides can endure. The possibility of life, even the most exotic and resilient biochemistry imaginable, is utterly foreclosed. Theta 9 is the antithesis of a habitable world, it is a monument to cosmic sterility, a place where the conditions are so extreme that they enforce a state of permanent, simple, and violent purity. It serves as a stark reminder that the conditions that allow for the intricate, delicate, and long-term evolution of life on Earth are not the default state of planets, but are instead a fragile and perhaps exceedingly rare exception. The universe is not intrinsically designed to produce complexity or life, it is designed to obey the laws of thermodynamics and gravity. Theta 9 is the logical, albeit terrifying, conclusion of one particular set of initial conditions, a demonstration of physics followed to its most extreme and destructive end. It is a world caught in a loop, forever destroying and recreating itself, a perfect, incandescent prison from which there is no escape. The distant, pulsing light from the Draco constellation is more than just a scientific curiosity, it is a philosophical anchor, a point of light that speaks to the vast, indifferent, and awe-inspiring power of the cosmos. It is the glow of a world that burns itself clean, a silent, rhythmic testament to the fact that order and violence can be one and the same, and that the universe's capacity to create is matched only by its capacity to destroy, with a precision and on a scale that will forever command a fearful respect.